Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and a butterfly came out.
Oh, wow. That is a deep, 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 deep question.
Welcome to the Comedians and Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Joseph Walker. Joseph, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Walker. My alias is Cato Fox. I am a performing artist slash scriptwriter and slash creative advisor to music and musicians and singers.
Oh, nice. Cato Fox, what's the history of this?
Cato Fox. Well, it's interesting you asked me about that. Cato Fox is uh, how I adopted that name. uh, there's this urban legend of where I'm originally from. I'm from a small town, and since I study martial arts, and there was this that I beat up three guys who were over 7 foot tall, and which wasn't true. But what happened was uh, people in the neighborhood started calling me Kato out of of course, after the Bruce Lee character from the Green Hornet series. So I said, hey, that's not a bad moniker, so why not? I'll take it.
All right. There you go. There it is. All right. Well, Joseph, or should I say Cato, are you ready to get started?
Let's do that, sir.
Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comment section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build. And we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me. All right. So the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian.
Yes,
So
sir.
I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So Joseph, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
Yeah, yeah, because from my personal experience, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but yeah, because I write comedy as well, and when I started, I started doing comedy bits. I wrote stories about my own family, me as my brothers sort of married after the Three Stooges, and I showed them to my classmates, and they thought they were pretty funny. And then, but I just noticed, like you just asked me, they were all ripoffs of Three Stooges bits. so so nobody is original, of course. But as time progresses, you develop your own your own repertoire. I mean, or your own style, something that fits you, of course. So
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
eventually you develop into a person who, like you said, who is a comedian, who does their own sticks, their own bits. Like Eddie Murphy, if I recall correctly, he said in the beginning he completely ripped off Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby, and uh,
Did he actually, or was he just kind of poking fun at the idea?
uh, well, I don't know, but I do know he said he started when he was 15,
Okay.
and at
Yeah.
15 he was just completely ripping off Richard Pryor, and
Yeah.
but as
Or he thinks he was.
or he thinks he was, like you said. Then as time progressed, he started doing comedy that fit more his own style.
Right. Well, it worked out. It worked
Yeah,
out for him. So
yeah, it worked
I
out
guess
big time. I hope that answered the question.
sure did. All right. How about the role of persona in comedy? So how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self?
I don't know. I guess that would depend on each person. Each person is different because who comes to mind because I study a lot of comedians too. Peter Sellers, I don't, especially Gen Z generation probably don't know have any clue who Peter Sellers is, but Peter Sellers was a very interesting man, because I'd done little studying of him, and honestly, he didn't really know who he was. He was trying to figure out who he was through the characters he played,
Hmm.
and so if people can say, "Oh, that's Peter Sellers on screen," he himself said, "No, that's you're just seeing a person who I'm portraying." He said, "I don't know who I am,"
Hmm.
because like I was having a discussion with this with somebody not too long ago. Um, when you see a comic performing, then when you see them at home, just chilling at the house, they're just kicking back, watching TV, might be listening to music or sitting down reading, and that's not them that's not how they are on stage or in film. Well, I said, well, no, what you're seeing on stage and in film, you're seeing the artist at work. You're not seeing the person. You're seeing an expression of them. You're seeing an expression of their creativity and imagination and their performance art, but that's not the actual person.
So
And
then, does authenticity matter, or is illusion part of the magic?
I would say a little bit of both, if you will, because authenticity and illusion, kind of, for as far as a film, as far as art, they kind of have to go hand in hand, in my belief. Because if you make it too surreal and too out there, then people be like, I don't get it.
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
But
No, you're
exactly.
looking at the yellow. You're like, what are we doing right now? Right?
But if you look at it, if you make it kind of like a little bit grounded in reality, they're like, okay, well, I kind of get what he's talking about. But they can still say it still sucks, but but
But at least
but
I understand. Right.
yeah, there you go. At least I understand it.
All right. So punching up versus punching down. So where do comics versus comedians stand on this? And let me put it in some historical context. Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester? Beady, 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 beady.
Oh wow, that is a deep, 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 deep question. Did the prince kill the first prince kill the court jester? Uh,
Did he become the first comedian by doing so?
I would say arguably yes, because for one thing I like if court jesters. Don't get me wrong, because I read a little bit about court jesters, and you had to be in extreme shape to be a court jester because you're doing all these leaps and somersaults, and you're basically making a buffoon of yourself before the people. And even though he didn't have to kill him, but at least he said, I'm tired of seeing the same bits all the time. And why don't I like to see something that's a little more with a little more expression, because like for one, I hate formula. Me personally,
Well,
I hate formula. I hate when it's just the same bits all the time. I like to see a little more creativity and imagination.
of course. Of course. So I think we camera got stuck here. Are you can you still hear me? There we
Oh
go.
yeah,
We're
no,
back.
no, I'm still here.
Oh, there you go. All right. So is the audience agreement with the comedian a form of permission or alignment?
Uh, how you mean? Say it again.
The is the audience's agreement with the comedian a form of permission or alignment?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Ooh, I would say form of permission more with, or no, let me backtrack. I would say form of alignment because one thing with comedy, you really don't know how the audience is going to react. You write something. There's been plenty of times I wrote something where I thought it was funny to me, but it died when it was brought out because basically, like you said, the form of alignment.
Hmm.
Uh, that audience didn't get it, or now that I've had times where, let's say I was performing a bit, I was performing in a play, and I did a funny bit, like I did a facial expression, and the audience laughed. And then I did it with another audience. There was a different set that night.
Hmm.
No laughter at all. So, like you said, it's a form of alignment. Like, okay, the previous audience, they matched with it. That audience didn't really connect with it too well. Does that mean that the bit isn't funny? Probably not. It just doesn't work with that, like you said, that alignment of audience.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, part of this question is that, you can go with the alignment, but if you don't have it, then you can just assume, well, ask for permission and go, or don't ask and just make that horrible joke, right? Go real dark on it. Sometimes it works, right?
Yeah, sometimes worse. Like it called. I remember one time. This was a few years ago. Nene Leaks.
Sounds familiar, but drawing a blank.
Nene Leaks. She used to be on Real Housewives of Atlanta, and and she also does stand up too. And she made a cab. There was a heckler in the audience, and she basically said, I can't quote it word for word, but she said something like, "You so broke, you a Uber driver," or something along those lines.
Okay.
And it did not work with the audience at all.
No, I mean, if it's a callback, but if it stands alone, that's not really, I mean, yeah. I mean, what's the catch?
Yeah, what's the catch? And then yeah, she took a little heat for it, but I think over time she recovered pretty good. But
Over time within the set?
not within the set, but over time with the public, because
Oh,
the
it was
public
bad.
was
I see.
yeah with yeah the set did not go over well at all. It
Yeah.
died, and she I think she had to leave from her
Okay.
performance that night. So
Oh, dear Lord. All right. Well, shoot. So, cultural translation of comedy. So, how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
well, because like you said, um, it's like I said, let's say Dave Chappelle, who I think is very very funny, Kevin Hart, like over here, their jokes we get them because we connect because they're of our culture. But let's say if Dave Chappelle does the same joke over in Germany, they're gonna be more like huh? Like I don't get it.
Well, plus they don't laugh till the end, right? They won't even applaud until the show's over. That's the Germans. That's the way they do it.
Yeah, because and like I said before, I think I wrote to you. If we think about, let's say 100 years ago, Charlie Chaplin, just about everybody knew, the whole world knew who Charlie Chaplin was, and he was there's few can have that title, a universally beloved comic,
Hmm.
because but he 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 was pretty much all physical comedy. Well, yeah, he didn't speak, so
Well, it was technically not part of the repertoire since it was silent film, right? So
exactly.
we're on the same page. He didn't have an option.
He didn't have an option, and but his film was played well in America, Europe, Brazil, wherever. I mean, he had a global audience, and it's like you said, but and so in some ways, um, because he didn't speak, but that was his whole character. It was a silent film era, and plus that was his whole thing. His character, the tramp, was basically a character who he expressed through the emotions. Like and don't get me wrong, Charlie Chaplin he was brilliant. Like I watch his films, I still get really moved by like when he shows like he's in love with a girl. Like he'll just move to the camera and you'll see those his eyes
Hmm.
express that, and I mean that's brilliant, and everybody in the world can understand that.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get the points for being first on a lot of things. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's where that art that first time is always well, let's put it I mean, to quote another famous YouTuber, first time isn't a war crime. Next question. How different would it be if the same thing started looking now like it would not change if nothing else really did?
Hmm. Say that again, please.
No, you got it. It's an impossible question. So, are comics more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
I would say, yeah, comedians are more culturally specific because a lot of comics they draw from what's going on in society, their background, how they live. So a lot of comics also, I mean, comedians. I mean, let me backtrack. They go from reading newspapers because they like I read or one comedian said, he said, if you want your comedy to stay fresh, always read newspaper clippings. Know
Hmm.
what's going on in current events because that way your comedy always stays fresh. And who I thought was a real master of doing of cultural and current events. I love him to death. Robin Williams. He was
Yeah,
amazing.
he was an icon, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it just mind blowing the stuff he came up with on the spot, on the fly, and a lot of it was just him doing cultural. Sure, some of his stuff is raunchy, but raunchy's funny if you do it right.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, he's going to go down well remembered in history.
Yes,
So,
I
crowd
wish I met
huh?
him, but it's okay.
Yeah, well. Crowd work versus crafted work. So, if comics riff like influencers in the comments section and comedians perform like in reaction videos, where's the sweet spot?
Ooh, good question. Good question. When you mentioned that, made me think of like I watched, especially when I watched the Chappelle show back in the day. I remember one time there was one part where Dave Chappelle just started riffing, like you're saying, just going on the fly, and the shot looked kind of out of focus because he just went off script,
Mm-hmm.
and and they were like either some of his coworkers were like, Dave, why'd you do that? You made the shot didn't look good, but he said, well, I don't like to be I don't like being married to the script. He said, and like I'm saying, I kind of like a balance,
Mm-hmm.
where it's, you have the script, the script's cool, but you can still, like, let's say something just comes to you that's just brilliant. That's just brilliant. But no, if you're at a point where we just stick with the script, we don't add nothing, we don't change nothing, then you don't lose, then you don't have room for spontaneity or brilliance.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah, the script's got to be perfect for it to work if you got to stick to it. So, which is,
Right.
well, impossible, right?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, because like I was trying to think, like I remember one movie I worked on uh years ago. I was we weren't shooting yet, but we were doing rehearsal, and I was just um I was having a conversation with the person who's supposed to be my girlfriend, and I just have lived something, and it made the crew laugh, but the director and the producer didn't like it.
got to fit the story, right? That's the only
Yeah,
thing.
they're like, because we stick to the script,
Right.
and 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 but then you got to realize that it's their movie, so
Right.
you're at their mercy.
Very important question. Advertising and self promotion. Who advertises themselves more? The comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy. where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Ooh. Ooh. Wow. You asked some really interesting questions. The comic, the comedian, or the magician? Huh. I would say the comedian and the magician are a little bit at both. Because the comedian, like one friend of mine back in the day, he was a stand-up comic, and he told me stand-up comedy is a rough life. He said, because basically you're on the road and you're hoping to get that big break. And he said, I'm going to doors, I'm traveling across country. And he said, I'm putting myself out there, hoping somebody sees me, and hoping to God my material works. And the magician is of the same because one thing I noticed if they have like you'll see big banners, big billboards of come see Karnak the Magnificent or something, and you realize at first I used to be like, oh, why they're going all out there, but then I realized this is how they eat. This is how they pay their bills, and so you can't get mad at them because this is how they live. And if they're not putting themselves out there, they're not going to eat. Plain and
Right.
simple.
Yeah. All right. Censorship and offense. So does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
I believe a comedian courts it because basically, um, I think it was D.L. Hughley who said that he said it's very hard to do comedy in this day and age because everything's so, like you said, censorship,
Mm-hmm.
censorship. You can't say this, you'll offend this person. You can't say that, make this, you'll offend that person. And yeah, and I always believe any art, not just comedy. Comedy, any art should never be totally censored because the power of the art is how well the artists express themselves. Because when you try to curtail an artist, you're not allowing them to be fully expressive. Like, I heard one singer said of NWA back in the day. I think he was an old time singer. He said, I don't agree, I'm not really into this type of music. But he said that, but they have the right to express themselves.
Right.
This is their way of expressing what they're going through, their life, what's going on in their lives, and who are we to tell them, you can't say this, you can't speak like that. Yeah, that's not our place. And
Well,
so,
mhm.
and like you said, a comedian courts with it, and it's very hard in this day and age.
That's for sure. So who survives better in the cancel culture environment? The comic, the comedian, the magician, or the mudslinger?
Hmm. I would say the magician and the mudslinger because yeah, because the magician he'll always have kids he can entertain. Because he pulls a rabbit out of his hat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know, cool. But the mudslinger, there'll always be hecklers. I don't care where you go.
Right.
There's always going to be people out there think they're funnier than you are, and so you might as well just get used to it. Unfortunately.
So, Joseph, are you ready to enter the multiverse?
Of course.
All right, here we go. Board game Zoomcast, play versus performance. If comedy were a board game Zoomcast, are you competing as the colorist, adding tone, mood, and shading, or the Foley artist, building punchlines with soundscapes and timing?
The latter one you said is probably the one I go with. That's the colorist, right?
Yeah.
I'd probably be the colorist.
All right. So does
Yep.
comedy work? Does comedy work better when it's painted vividly or when it's orchestrated sonically?
When it's painted vividly or orchestrated sonically. I say when it's painted vividly because when it's painted vividly, pretty much everybody gets what you're talking about. Everyone gets what you're talking about. But when you got it, like you said, when it's done sonically, that means, from what I understand, you kind of have to explain it. And when to me, when you have to explain a joke, it's already failed.
Sure, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Hopefully you don't have to explain it.
Right.
It comes across without doing so. And I would agree if you have to explain it, it's well, game over.
Right.
So so here in the Comedians and Elevators podcast, we have a tradition where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest. And the previous guest was Andrew Smith. And his question for you, Joseph, is when you are feeling down and out in your profession, what do you do to keep on keeping on?
Ooh, good question. Good question. One is what do I do to keep it on, to keep it on? I would say one is my faith, because I'm a believer in God, and I believe he he'll he'll always be with me and he'll make a way for me no matter what. And I believe he has me where I'm supposed to be. And number two, I have family like my dad and my brothers who encourage me to keep moving, and they actually give me the understanding and belief to, like, you can do anything, even if it's a fallacy, even if it's not true. If a person tells you you can fly over the mountain, believe me, I believe you'll find a way to fly over the mountain.
All right. All right. So, last question, legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics Type 5 survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
No, I would say the comic. I would say the comic because I was watching a film not too long ago. I believe it was a Low Down Dirty Shame with Keenan Ivory Wayans.
Hmm.
And it's a very funny film. But see, because you and I believe we grew up in the 90s.
Hmm.
We would get it because we were there. But if you show it to like somebody born in 2000 on down, they're like, what is he talking about? Because because it worked for that time frame.
Right.
But but if you do something where let's say you did something that, let's say, like Charlie Chaplin, the Marx Brothers, like I can watch a Marx Brothers movie and still laugh at it today as much as the as main comics today, because they express their comedy was their expression. They they express from their perspective and from their hearts.
All right.
It wasn't
So,
manufactured.
not manufactured at all. They at least they were the manufacturer. So,
That's
right.
right. They're the manufacturers.
So, Joseph, where can everybody find you online?
You can find me on Instagram, Walker Fox. Walker Fox, that's my handle. Hit me up anytime, and I'm creative advisor to Beloved Jackson, singer who's a relative of the Jackson family. Please support her work because I'm her creative advisor. And yeah, on Instagram. I believe I am on Snapchat with the same handle, Walker Fox. Yeah, that's where you hit me up.
All right. Awesome. Well, Joseph, thank you so much for being my guest. And for everyone else,
Thank
please
you. I
like and
appreciate you.
Well, absolutely. And everyone watching, please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.
Yeah, take care.